I would like to invite everybody from Studio David Claerbout to the stage, because I think they curated the series all together, and I want to ask them to give an introduction to the series, but please give them a warm applause.
My name is Celine.
I'm Jasper, and I'm from Studio Claerbout.
Alexei, also from Studio David Claerbout.
I am Willem from Claerbout Studio.
I am David. I'm doing the household and the maintenance at the studio.
So, yeah, it's actually amazing that this foundation exists already since 15 years. So what we are going to see, we did a selection not based on really a thematic, but what we just liked. So it's very subjective, it's very eclectic, maybe a little bit trained from what we work on, and it will be a little bit a travel in time, because in 15 years in a new medium like video, yeah, a lot happens.
Well, there was one thing that we noticed through, which is interesting with the whole website, is that you can really travel back in time and see artists' production methods from the 1990s, which I recall very well because I was a young artist in that time, and changing to nowadays. And the difference between then and now is that nowadays everybody is a producer of content that goes online somehow. At that time it wasn't the case. You really had to have a certain entrance into technology. You had to spend a little bit of money, blah blah blah, rent some stuff before you could produce something. And you can really see the shift. And then this 1 minute thing really irritated me because it's too short to make a masterpiece. But on the other hand, nowadays 1 minute is a very long attention span. So maybe that's quite okay. But I found it as a format. I was thinking often how would I work if they asked me to do a 1 minute thing.
They asked.
They asked me. I guess I must have said I don't have time. It's a lot of work, but I did once for the new museum. It was called the series The Anthology of the Moving Image, which was a little bit pretentious, and it became a DVD series at that time. It was like 15 years ago, I think, and they asked me to do a 5-minute film, which I thought was, you see, when they ask me to do something like that, I really go into the defensive, like most of us would probably. Why would they ask me to do something that's no longer than 5 minutes? And so I started to imagine what people do when they say, oh, okay, I'm going to spend my evening watching 1 minute movies, or I'm going to spend my evening watching 5-minute movies. And so the only time I did something like that was when I started to imagine, I got an idea when I started to imagine how people took in and out DVDs, you know, on a lazy winter evening, and not very interested. And I thought, oh, that's actually the public that you're having is not very keen on watching for a long time. And so I did one thing then, and it was a piece with a cat in a forest. It started like a horror movie, but it was basically just a cat coming out of the forest.
Now you do spoiler alert because they are going to show it.
Oh shit! I didn't know. Sorry, I didn't know.
And I have to add, you did very well. You spent 2 minutes 44 seconds and not 5 minutes.
Yeah, but that was also a problem because that was not 5 minutes, so it was less than 5 minutes.
So they almost didn't want to pay.
The way, you know, we didn't really work, as Celine said. I watched a number of the files. You watched the bulk of it.
We have a collection, an archive of almost 17,000 films. So I think they watched most of it.
sure.
And selected films.
Yeah. And you just calculated that is 11.8 hours of days.
Days. 11.8 days.
11.8 days of footage that you have. I'm just informing you that some 15 years ago was the moment where somebody said to me, who's a real cinephile, said, you know, this is a special date. I don't remember when it was. Must have been 2002 or 2003. We were in a bar and he said, this was a guy who had seen every possible movie that was ever made. He said, this is a very special day because we've just passed the threshold of how many films you can see in your life, and there's now officially more films existing than one could see in a regular life, let's say age 75. So that's how we quantify quality. I should stop talking. You.
Well, no, it's really interesting, and I wanted to know how many 1-minute videos you have collected. Shocking that there are so many, because if you scroll for a certain time through 1 minute, and you will experience this now for 37 minutes. 1 minute can be very, very short or very, very long. So it's all relative. And there are some artists who did a lot of 1 minute videos, so they become more and more familiar. That would also have been an interesting subject to collect all these 1 minutes from these artists and to see how far you can go in 1 minute. So how much can you tell in 1 minute, or nothing at all, or whatever. Where, like you said, how far can you go with your creativity and
because you know that you don't have any patience. It's like watching a publicity movie. It's 45 seconds, I believe, or something.
15 seconds.
15
when it's
seconds.
outside, it's only 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But all these artists from the 1 minute, they get the attention of their 1 minute, which is far, far more than when you go through a museum and you look at the painting for 3 seconds.
Exactly.
So enjoy it.
Okay.